I see there's a stock in the middle of nowhere, and I'm actually going to try and go for it.
Yes, try and go for it. Oh, there we go. Good shot.
Thank you.
Now that's SacOil that's out there.
Okay.
What a great stock story.
And a very volatile stock. We know that the management out this week saying they're really worried about manipulation on the share price. What are you reading into the story? Because
what a joke.
Essentially,
they only ever complain when the share price is being manipulated down. When it's being manipulated up, it's fine.
Would you say that it's been manipulated both ways? Is
well,
that what you're saying?
Look at the story here. It was basically a cash shell, so there was nothing much going on there. And then they got rights to do certain oil exploration and production activities up country. So we're talking in the sort of Uganda, Rwanda area, and then also on the left-hand side, sort of Equatorial Guinea area of Africa, you see. So now everybody starts getting excited. Then they got the PIC to take a stake, which was very unusual because PIC normally owns companies, you know, about the size of SacOil, and now they're looking at SacOil. Then in the Johannesburg trader community, involving the likes of the luminary Greg Blank and so on, they start sending each other messages about how this is the hot stock to own. So it starts jumping 15, 30, 70 cents, a rand 50, and it climbs up to like 2 rand 15 off of a 15-cent base. So a thing like this starts to attract lots of fellow travelers. The announcement this week indicated that they are not going to proceed now with a cash raising. There are issues about how valuable these assets of theirs are. Total is taking a stake in one of them, and that's sort of partly the reason for the excitement. But then it starts collapsing downwards because, you know, lots of the people who didn't really know what it was are starting to get anxious and looking to take profits. And naturally, in this case, then there's nobody to do any buying.
May I ask you this? I mean, perhaps a little bit controversial, but it is Friday, and perhaps I can ask you this. With regards to manipulation of share prices, I mean, from your experience, do you get those kind of messages, those phone calls saying, well, this is what we've heard, buy on this rumor? How often does this happen?
You know, it sort of happens a lot, but the argument that something is being manipulated is normally complete twaddle. You know, people only complain when they either can't get any stock and they argue that the thing is being held back, or they're trying to offload it and it's too weak. In this case, it's the company that wants to do an equity raising at these absurd levels, saying that people are pressing it down for reasons that are not specified. So I'm very skeptical. Whenever you see a stock that is very, very thinly traded, you could argue that sometimes buying and selling is happening at unrealistic prices. But to say that the share price is being manipulated over a period of months is normally complete rubbish.
Wouldn't you say the fact that the PIC has bought into the SacOil story in a sense is a vote or stamp of confidence?
Yes, because normally if a small cap attracts an institutional quality investor, that's a sign that somebody at least with, you know, resources, money and brains has applied them and is feeling like this is an attractive one. But remember, part of the reason people are a bit skeptical about SacOil is that there's some of South Africa's royal families involved there. And I'm talking about the Zuma offspring and the Mandela offspring that were peripherally involved, and so that was being used as a selling point to suggest that they would get more allocations in these areas and so on and so forth.
Well, it's fascinating because we've discussed SacOil and hot stocks before, and a lot of the guys on the day saying if you want that spec play, then SacOil is the way to go. Would you be allocating money to SacOil?
No, not even almost. You know, not even with you know, the hottest sort of speculative money, because these things become like a feeding frenzy. You know, it's one thing if you've got earnings and you're working out where something ought to be placed, but to kind of chase it like this is nuts.
Okay, Christine Lagarde, Trevor Manuel, what do they have in common?
So
they're both aspiring to be the head of the IMF.
Yeah, exactly. And the other name that's surfaced this week is Stanley Fisher, who's an interesting guy. He's a Zambian. Then he went and studied here in South Africa, ended up in the US, was with the IMF before. He's now the central bank governor in Israel. If you've ever heard him on TV, he sounds like a Southern African, but he's apparently rumored to be a potential candidate as well. But you know, I think this thing is over. I've been saying it's been over for weeks. You know, Hillary Clinton yesterday said she thought it'd be fabulous if a woman were to have that job. I think Barack Obama is within a whisker of saying that he thinks it's a good idea. The Europeans have got far too much at stake right now in terms of sovereign debt issues to allow anyone with unusual views about the world economy to get anywhere near a position of that authority. And certainly Trevor Manuel, some people down here think he's too progressive, others think he's too liberal. but he's got, by their standards, unusual views about the global economy.
What did you think of Maria Ramos Googling Lady Gaga and her comments on Dominic Strauss-Kahn while we at it?
I'm convinced that she knows who Lady Gaga is. For her to say that she didn't know who Lady Gaga was is ridiculous. Who doesn't know who Lady Gaga is? Even Maria Ramos has got to know who Lady Gaga is, please. So she's saying Lady Gaga is a more powerful female than her. Well, anyway.
Apparently, according to the Forbes list, in fact,
exactly.
she is. Okay, well, going forward next week, we had US GDP out this week, so a little bit dismal, 1.8%. We've got South African GDP, and we're looking at 4.4% growth for the first quarter.
Fabulous. What a number. That sounds like excellent performance by our standards.
Yeah.
Look, there are other things that I'm worried about next week. I mean, I'm very worried about the Massmart, Walmart
Did you say worried, Paul?
Yeah, no, it's occasional. I do, you know, have the odd concern.
Okay.
I mean, this one could really go either way.
Yeah.
Because, you know...
And you're pro the Walmart decision,
Absolutely.
clearly.
Absolutely. I think it should be approved with no conditionalities.
I quite find it quite fascinating. I mean, I alluded to this a little earlier with Wayne McCurry speaking to the Nampak CEO a little earlier this week. He was just alluding to the fact that if a product is in fact going to be impacted, it's also the people that package that product. He also mentioned, for instance, Tiger Brands. He was talking about canned beans, importation of those, which is already affecting some of these South African producers, because right now it's actually cheaper to import the whole product as opposed to the product and then packaging it here. So does that not create a worry for you? No,
I'm totally unsympathetic to those guys. I mean, I understand that Walmart had a meeting with Tiger Brands to kind of sound them out, because they would be a major supplier.
Yeah.
But, you know, in the way the world is, you can't meddle with those sort of things. You just have to, like, find where your competitive advantage is. And if Tiger have to shut down certain production lines, and if Nampak has to move their operations to Angola instead, that'll just be the way the cookie crumbles. You know, we can't run the economy on that basis. I've been ranting about that in previous conversations.
You've been ranting?
It's just got to go, you know, you've just got to let it go.
Okay, Naspers, next week, results.
Well, I mean, Naspers,
one of your favorite stocks.
I'm not so really interested in the results, to be perfectly honest, because that tallies up how much money they'd be making in DStv and so on. The real issue is whether or not Tencent can double its share valuation on the back of all the hoopla and excitement in New York around, you know, LinkedIn and Zynga and Facebook and all of those things. So I'm looking for progress and commentary out of Tencent. I think that's what's going to push.
It is Friday. You're supposed to end with a joke, Paul.
Well, I had a fabulous joke. I'm not sure if it's fit for you know, business television consumption, but it sort of relates to the Naspers, not the Naspers, the Massmart decision. Is, you know, when you're waiting for, no, actually I can't, no, actually I'm going to have to bail.